you would see these people that you thought like, oh, hey friend, how you doing? And because their rank had advanced, they then looked down their nose at you and go, what do you want? Inviting went from invite so that you can sell a product to recruit, recruit, recruits. Because one of the vital behaviors became invite, invite, invite. And that subtext for recruit, recruit, recruit. That's when it got really slimy. You're sold on that aspect of it. And it's all very false.
When you were in these circles, did anyone ever try to encourage you to cut out people in your life who had too much negativity?
Oh yeah.
Really? Yeah?
All the time. Savvy, I'm here.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for talking tonight. I was glad you reached out to me. I'm really excited to hear about your experiences and your thoughts and everything. So I guess to start out, just tell me about, what your experience was in Beachbody. Like, when did you start? What did you do? What's kind of the overall synopsis of what happened?
Oh my goodness. It's a long story. It began as a customer. Believe it or not, I was a customer in like 2008 and 2009. So saw the infomercials on TV for years, and I was like obsessed with wanting to try their program Turbo Jam. Mm-hmm. And it looked like fun. And, I had, he's now obviously my ex-fiance, but at the time when we were together, he was putting a lot of pressure on me about my weight and stuff. So I was looking for options other than just going to the gym. So I ended up, get Turbo Jam. And then my mom ended up buying Chalene Extreme for me. And I started doing those programs. And in turn with becoming, looking back, I was a customer and I was assigned my very first, coach. It was, here's this person and I'm here to help you. And, it was very different back then. She was very chill. She was just there to kind of talk to if I had, questions about the program, like, oh, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? And then, that's back when they had just the forums you could go to, the old school forums, and you'd go and talk to people there. So it was very, very, very different back in the day. And this kind of continued on. She quit. I ended up being pushed up to her husband, but I had no connection with him. So I ended up flipping to somebody else who then actually became my upline. So I remained a customer for a good few years because coaching did not actually come to Canada until October 1st, 2012. Oh,
okay.
So I was just a customer, but I was kind of getting a peek in behind the scenes a little bit because I was, of course, connected to these people on Facebook, and I was kind of seeing what they're doing. And their tactics back then were almost, like I said, it was a different animal back then because I didn't see the recruiting tactics. I did not see, kind of the sleazy way that it is more now, where it's so recruitment focused. Back then it was about the products, like, hey, we've got these DVDs, and hey, this can help you. And it was more so focused on that aspect of it. But probably I didn't see much of the recruiting aspect because the woman that I was assigned to, or I had flipped over to, she knew that I was Canadian, and she knew that the opportunity, you know, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes here, it was not available in Canada. So she knew she couldn't go after me in that instance, but she had me as a customer. And like the way that I ended up flipping to her was, there was a comment by another coach, a very high up coach on Facebook. I commented on one of Janelle Summers' posts on Facebook because I followed her, because of course I'd seen her in the videos. And the woman who ended up becoming my upline, I literally commented, and I had two people like almost like instantly, like I would put it as an attack. They both jumped on me for my comment. And the one that I ended up going with, I started having a conversation with her, and she seemed very personable and very real. And, you know, as I said, she kind of became my coach. And at that point, like, she kind of felt like a friend, like it felt a little more authentic. So of course, like, remained in good contact with her while I was, you know, like I said, still a customer and doing the programs. And then of course, this was, when I got started as a customer, this was long before they had Shakeology. Like, Shakeology wasn't even like a thing yet. When it became a thing, then it was, oh my God, we've got this great new thing. And I was curious about it. So I reached out to her, and she sent me a sample. And I know people say like, oh, Shakeology is gross and da-da-da. I'm one of those people that actually liked it. I actually really liked it. And, you know, I got really excited about it. And so I ended up, my boyfriend, I'd moved on in relationships, and my boyfriend at the time, he kind of noticed that I was, you know, wanting to take better care of myself still. And he said, you know what, like, I'll help you buy this. So he helped me buy like my first bag of it. And I was like, I really like this. And then this was also about the time, this would have been the summer of about, I want to say about 2012-ish, like a summer getting close into 2012. And that's when they were starting challenge groups. So I got invited into the challenge group, and this is when you could actually compete. I actually won the challenge group that I was in.
Cool! Congrats!
Yeah, it was really cool. And my coach, she sent me a virtual gift card. I think it was like $50 or whatever, and I was excited. I spent it on a DVD set to up my Shailene Extreme DVD set, because this is back when they still had DVDs. Beachbody on demand, again, wasn't even a thing. So I'm like, I'm one of like the old timers, I would say. Like I've seen it from the very start into what it is now. So as I said, I spent the gift card on the DVDs, and she kind of started hinting towards coaching. Like, she'd gone to leadership, and I guess she'd started hearing about the possibility that they were going to crack the Canadian market. Well, lo and behold, 2012 hit. October 1st, 2012, my application went in, and I was a coach. I was one of the original Canadian coaches who signed up on like day one of the opportunity. They just made it look so fun. Like, it was fun to just connect with people and hang out and have these common interests. And I just wanted to be part of it, because honestly, going through school, I was the girl everybody picked on all the way through school. I had differences of opinions. I was brought up differently. I just knew that where I grew up, there was more outside of that place than what was there, and I was always looking for more. I wanted something more for my life, and that really ruffled a few feathers. And, you know, I would, to also put it in perspective, I would say a lot of the perspectives in my town were very conservative, and I have more of a liberal mindset, more open and accepting and everything. And they really shit all over me for that.
So was it then that it was, you know, the sense of community that was what inspired you to want to go from being a customer to joining as a coach?
Yeah, like to be part of that community. And that's what drew me in, was like, okay, now I'm joining my friend, and now I'm meeting some new friends, and you know, like, we're all in this group on Facebook, and we're all talking to one another, and that's what was really, really cool. So, you know, once I started as a coach, like I was signed up, but I think she didn't run her first like training group for about 2 to 3 weeks after that. So I was just kind of lingering, kind of like, okay, now I'm a coach, this is cool and everything. But then we got on, you know, we started, okay, we're going to do these training calls. And back then it was done over the phone through phone conferencing. So you could imagine, have to dial long distance because I'm calling from Canada to a number.
Yeah.
And the sound quality was not the greatest. You had to like fiddle with your phone to mute and unmute yourself, or she would call on you, and you know, like there was no face-to-face contact, and it made it really awkward. Didn't go very far with that group. I kind of started skipping the calls. Like I'm not gonna lie, it was not. They preach about consistency. I wasn't very consistent in a lot of that stuff because something about it just started to bug me. Plus, I had a life, and she would schedule these calls at a time when it's like, I've already got something, like I've got work, or I've got a prior commitment, or, you know, like I have to go and live my life. I can't, I immediately felt that friction of, you know, like I've got my life and you're scheduling these and you're not checking with us first. Like there's things that I just can't change. So I kind of was outside of that a little bit, but kind of doing the catch up on Facebook when I can, because she would post the recordings and you could listen to them, but you weren't actively involved. So it was easy to kind of start, in a sense, tuning it out.
So were the calls then, when you did a team call, was that primarily to discuss recruitment strategies and like recruit other people, or were the calls about like sales strategies? Or I guess what happened? I did the reaction to that one call, but I'm, you know, curious what kind of tends to happen on a team call.
Where it was in that day was they veiled the recruitment strategies. They talked about it as, you know, invite people to get better in their lives, you know, invite them to work out with you, like invite them over and do the workouts with them, and invite them to join you on the journey. Like it was never about invite to your team. It was invite them in a way that to sell the product, because back then it was more heavily product based. Right? Like there was the, you know, if they want the discount, invite them to join as a coach to get, and it's a 25% discount that you get. So you get 25% off as a coach, though the 25% you save on the product, you pay on the coach fee. So you're really not saving 25%.
Yeah, because I remember that was a thing I noticed. Like a while back, I did a video where I reacted to Rachel Hollis's speech at the Beachbody convention, and during that, I remember seeing like on Beachbody's, like in their terms, they were talking about like if you sign up as a coach, you pay $15 a month to keep your website and your account and your page active, and it was like, well, that's going to cut into like significantly into whatever you were either saving or earning. So it feels like that's kind of like you really get any benefit out of it.
Well, it was counteractive. And back in the day when we first started, so when the first Canadian coaches started, we were technically American coaches operating in Canada. So we were housed under the American coach practices. So that's how they kind of held us together and kind of operated with us, as we were technically like quote unquote Americans operating in Canada. And when we first started, there was no direct deposit. So if you made a commission, they mailed you a check. So it was very convoluted to kind of get started. Like they kind of didn't really do their homework before we got started. And then, you know, back then the prices as well for the product, like you say, $100 for Shakeology and $15 for the coach fee. That's what it was back then. As soon as it opened in Canada, and it opened in Canada probably about 6 to 8 months later, because I went out to Vancouver for the launch event and I met Carl Deichler and everything.
What was that like? What was it like meeting like those? Are they as creepy and cult-like as they seem to the outside.
You know what? When I met them, I mean, beforehand, the only person I'd ever met, his name is Arnold Nakaha, and I met him, and he's a super nice guy. Like, he was never creepy. He was never disingenuous. He was actually very, very kind and very, you know, encouraging. Like, he felt authentic. And then there was somebody in the company by the name of Jeff Hill. Jeff Hill has since moved on. He was also really, really nice. But then when I got to meet Carl Deichler, and the funny thing is, I had posted something on Instagram, and he like instant followed me, and I met him first in line 5 minutes later, and he's like, "Oh, I remember you." And I was like, "Oh, dude, hey, how's it going?" And he was super nice. He was actually really, really nice. Because again, back then it was a little less about recruiting to your team and more so about, you know, selling the products. But I mean, there still was that recruitment aspect. It just wasn't so creepy like it is now.
Did you recruit people to your team?
You know what? I actually had a lot of problems with the recruitment aspect, where it was like, you know, build your team, when it started to really move towards build your team, I just physically felt sick. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And it made me feel like one of those creepy salespeople, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, I immediately was, okay, you want me to prey on everybody? Like, predatory. It's very predatory. And I just said, no way. So honestly, it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I just wouldn't do it. Cause I just was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do the recruiting part. I just kind of want to, you know, I'd love to just sell the products. Cause I really like the products. I like the workouts. I liked the shake. Like, it was like, hey, try this. Like,
yeah.
do this. Yeah. I really didn't, I did think like, okay, like how do this whole promise of it being a business and you can support yourself. And I'm looking at all these people who kind of started around the same time I did, and they're shooting up the ranks. And back then they used to tell you that rank equals ego. And we can see nowadays, yes, your rank equals your ego. It just all didn't feel right. So I just kind of sat there. The only people that I ended up recruiting, and I didn't recruit anybody. So keep in mind, I joined in 2012. I finally didn't, and I shouldn't say recruit, I just kind of asked if they wanted to be part of it, was my you know, another boyfriend, a boyfriend at the time in 2015, he joined me. And then a friend of mine, a good girlfriend of mine. So by recruiting the two of them, you know, using that word recruiting, but asking them to join me, and I didn't have to beg. They actually were very supportive, and they're like, yeah, we'll support you. We'd love to be part of your, you know, like, see you go somewhere. And, you know, I made it to Emerald. So I had two people who were, as they call, active, because they both were buying Shakeology, and it pushed me up to Emerald. So when I went to the conference that year, I went as an Emerald, and because I held it for so long, I was considered a lifetime Emerald. But I never went any higher because that whole recruitment, that's about the time, it was about 2015 when it turned from the products into the more so pressure on the recruiting.
Yeah, and I've always wondered, like, I feel like MLM type companies could be so much more ethical if they just completely switch to an affiliate marketing model. Because like what you're saying is, like, if there's a company like Beachbody that didn't have an MLM structure, didn't have an upline or a downline, it just had like, okay, here's this workout program that I really like. I use this workout. Let me just share links to it on my social media. And if somebody buys it, I get a 10% commission or whatever. And then there would be no way to recruit anybody else, and nobody would pay to join anything. It would just be like, you made a sale, cool, you get a commission. Like, I don't see why they can't just do that. I mean, I'm sure because this is probably more profitable for the founders and that kind of thing, but I just feel like that's such a more ethical way to do it. So like, these companies should just do that, and then we can move on, you know?
I agree, because you only receive a 25% commission on the products.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before, so once we opened in Canada, this whole aspect of this 25% discount. So once we opened in Canada, the prices for Canadians jumped. Canadians pay $18.95 a month for their coach fee, and I was paying $129.81 per month for my Shakeology. So I was paying almost $150 a month to stay active as a coach, because you can't just pay the fee. Yeah. You can't just pay the fee. You have to buy, and at that point, the only thing you could buy was Shakeology, because you had to keep your personal volume at, I think it was 90, and that was the only thing that you could get that would keep you at 90 points. So it was. So
was it like, so you had to keep personal volume? So, like, if you didn't order the Shakeology and you didn't order that for yourself, what would happen to you?
You would go inactive.
Okay. And what happens if you go inactive? Like, what's the penalty of that?
The penalty of inactive is that if anybody buys anything, like say you came along and you bought a program, but I'm inactive, I don't get my commission.
Okay, so there's absolutely no way that you can just sell for solely commission. You always have to buy things yourself in order to receive commission.
Yes.
That's the problem. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it was, there was that constant pressure every month of, okay, like I need to somehow afford this. And there were times where I did have to go inactive. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, if you go inactive too long, you also lose your rank, or you used to lose your rank. So it became a pressure point. But that's kind of the part where I started to really question, do I want to continue to do this? Do I want to continue to do this? But I hung out because by this point, 2014, I went to Vegas. 2015, I went to Nashville, which was a dream come true. 2016, went to Nashville. It was, dream come true part 2. And I met so many people that they felt like real friends. Like they were people, not just from my own community, but from the United States and in and around the United States. And I'd stayed in contact with them. And those were the relationships that I didn't want to lose. So I just kind of hung out, and I'm like, okay, I'm still here. Yeah, this is cool. But little did I know, and you're so blinded by it while you're in it, because of course you go to these conferences and they parade out the trainers, and it's, come and meet them, and you get your picture taken with them, and you get to talk to them, and you get to meet all these people that you only ever see on Facebook. And it's like almost like being starstruck. You're very blinded while you're in it, but in doing so, you're spending so much money. Like,
yeah, that's what I wanted to hear about. A lot was the conferences, because I know the conferences are a big cost to the consultants to go to. So can you tell me a little about the conferences? Like, how much does it cost to go to the conferences? What do you learn is the conference focused more on recruitment, or more on selling, or more on working out? Or I guess just kind of take me through, because the conferences fascinate me. So I'd love to know more about them.
So the conferences cost-wise, I'll start there. You pay, it used to be if you bought, they would sell the initial tickets for the next conference at the current conference. And you'd usually pay about, now this is in American funds. And again, remember, I'm Canadian, so I ended up paying more.
Yeah.
But they usually started at about, the one year it was about $145. The next year it was $195. And they're like, oh, it's such a good deal. Because then the prices rise as the year goes on. And
that's so expensive.
It is. And as it gets closer to the next the conference time, the tickets go upwards, and they're close to like $250, $300. Like they go up. Like it's insane with those costs. But then you have to factor in your travel costs. So, your flights, how many days are you actually going to be there? Where are you coming from? How are you going to make it happen? Some people, if they were close enough, they would drive. Some people would go, hey, we're going on a road trip, and they would all pile into a vehicle and drive down and split those costs. Me, I flew because I had no other choice, but I was I'm a bit of a savvy traveler now. I used to do travel for executives and such. So I would watch for sales and try to get the best deal possible. I think the most I spent was about $600 round trip on a flight to get to one of the conferences. But then comes the hotel, because they pre-book blocks of rooms in the hotels. And then, of course, trying to get one of those rooms, like picture it like a bunch of women in a cat fight. Because you're all clamoring on the same day the website opens to get in there and try to get a room. And then once you secure it, you hang on to it with your claws dug deep in it for dear life. But again, those rooms per night are about $250, $300 a night.
God. And it was like, were you required to get those hotel rooms, or could you like find a cheaper hotel somewhere else?
You could try, but those ones as well, as soon as the main ones would go, those ones would get snapped up too. So myself, I think there was only the 1 year in Nashville that I ended up with a really, really good deal. I ended up scoring a pretty good deal on a hotel. But what you do with the hotels too is it's not just me in the room. You pile 4, 5 people into the room. In Vegas, my first year in Vegas, we had 5 girls in the room. So we had 2 of us in the bed, one on one couch, one on the other, and the other one was on cushions on the floor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was this kind of like, the room was more like a suite, so we had room, but at the same time you have 5 girls in the room, and you have all of our luggage, and then you have all the shit that we buy at, it's called the core.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have all of that. There's just crap everywhere, and it's just a mess. And I'm a little bit of a, I wouldn't say I'm OCD, but I can't stand clutter and I can't stand mess like that. And
I'm the opposite. I do have diagnosed OCD, and I have clutter everywhere.
And it's just like, oh my God, and you're tripping over this for about 3 to 4 days. So, you know, that's what you do with the hotel. So you get there, and the way that we got smart with the conferences, though, is we would go down either a day early or the night before, and then we go to the grocery store and get food for the next, 3-4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how we figured out how to save costs. Otherwise, you're standing in lines that are hours long, just trying to get a meal in between workshops. And it's insane. You're running around, you're basically starving to death. Whereas those of us that go to the grocery store, we throw it in a lunch kit in our backpack with our notebooks and whatever else we needed, and we just towed our food around with us all day long.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, and it was the one thing that kind of saved me, because otherwise you're just dying by the end of it, because you literally are running. You get up in the morning, and you'll go to a workout. So you'll go work out with one of the super trainers at like 6:30, 7:30 in the morning. Go do one of the exclusive workouts. Run back to your hotel room, and you work out with them for about an hour. So then you're running back to your hotel room. You're trying to get in the shower, and with your roommates as well. You're all trying to take fast showers as much as possible, because then you've got to go to general session for about 9:30 in the morning. So then you sit there for about 3.5 hours. And what they do at the general sessions, those ones, they talk to you. That's where they have like the keynote speakers, like you saw the Rachel Hollis.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Darren Hardy, Gary Vaynerchuk.
That disappoints me so much. I used to be a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's even said in interviews that he doesn't like MLM. So that disappoints me that I know he's all about making money, so I can see why he'd do it, but that disappoints me so much.
I think he came out with his dislike for MLMs after so many inviting him. So I saw him in 2016 is when I saw Gary, and I think that was kind of his last, roundabout with the MLM community. Because I think it was after that he came out and went no dice. So I saw him. Yeah,
because I like a lot of his strategy on content marketing. I feel like is really good, and I feel like he's got a lot of decent business advice. So it always, it's always a disappointment when someone, that you like will speak for something that you don't approve of, but it happens.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, luckily, what he got up there, he wasn't up there like, he was kind of talking about how to be yourself, and basically, like, he was very, very brash with what he said, but I have a lot of respect for him for what
he said. Sounds like him.
He didn't, feed into the whole, like, build your business and MLM crap. He was just talking about, like, you want to do something, get off your ass and go and do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's not wrong, but yeah. I've noticed with a lot of speakers at these events, based on what I've reacted to in the past, a lot of them will sometimes give advice that is good in terms of like business advice, but is bad when you apply it to MLM stuff. Have you noticed that at all?
I've noticed a little bit of that once I heard the speak, and Darren Hardy gave pretty well the same speech twice, about 3 years apart. It really didn't apply. Like, it really didn't apply to the MLM side of things. It applied to some life stuff, which was really cool to listen to. But when it came to the MLM stuff, it was just, I felt so lost. Yeah. And I mean, I was sitting there taking, if I could show you my notes now I don't have the notebooks anymore. I got rid of them last year, but I used to take extensive detailed notes during these with what they were saying. And I would sit there and, oh my God, my arm would ache because I would be videoing them as well. So I'm holding my phone in one hand and I'm scratching notes in the other one. And it was just like, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But so general sessions, you would have the keynotes, but you would also have like some of the top coaches would come out and talk, or like Chalene Johnson would come out and give her speech. And they just about died of shock the year that she came out and told the crowd to have more sex, and that's what helps your relationship. And it was that I still have that video just because it's so funny.
If you ever want to send it to me, I'll make a video on it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That sounds hilarious. I mean, that's also what I was just talking about that Rachel Hollis always says is like, you need to be having sex all the time. It's like, no, you don't.
Well, nowadays we don't want to take advice from Rachel Hollis because we all know what that's about. I mean, honestly, I had her books on my e-readers. Mm-hmm. I've never read them, and I've deleted them because once everything started coming out, especially the fact that she's just plagiarizing to make money, I'm like,
plagiarize so much. Yeah.
I'm like, F that. Nope. Delete. I was like, I don't even know what her books say. And I just, at this point, I don't even care. But so back to the conferences. So usually the mornings were your general sessions, and then you'd go to your workshops in the afternoon. So in the mornings, it was more about connecting with people and kind of how to better yourself, and sometimes it was about sales a little bit, but it was about building relationships to gain the sales, like build, like, trust, everything else. Once you got into the afternoon workshops, that's where they would hit you with more of the recruiting, like, this is how you build your team, this is how you like, this is where you go to connect with people. This is how you do things on Facebook. This is how you make your post. This is what you need to make it look like. This is what you need to say. So it was almost like, and they would have their examples up on the screens. And of course, we're all taking pictures of all of this, and we're going, okay, this is what we need to do, and this is what we don't, we shouldn't be doing. And you're sitting through these workshops for, those ones would run from about 1 o'clock till sometimes 4:30 in the afternoon. So you're just sitting there, and it's just over and over. And then of course you get a panel that would come out, and they talk about why they're so high up and what they did. And all in all, I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not actually hearing you tell me what I need to do.
Just like a lot of general advice that you're like, I don't know how to apply this to what I'm actually supposed to do.
Yeah, there was nothing like, okay, here's step 1 and here's, you know, the sub steps. Here's step 2 and here's the sub steps. It was very, very scratched, even the above the surface. They never delved deep into exactly what you needed to do. But of course there was interlaced in that aspect of the recruitment. Build your team, invite people. And it went from invite to work out with you, invite to, you know, if they want to get stronger, lose weight, or just feel better, to invite to the team. So inviting went from invite so that you can sell a product to recruits. Because one of the vital behaviors became invite, and that subtext for recruit. Because it went from 3 vital behaviors to 4 vital behaviors. And that's when it got really slimy. Like it just got so bad. And so I went to the conference. I went in 2014, I was in Vegas. 15 and 16, I was in Nashville. 17, which was my last one I ever attended, was in New Orleans. And that one was a joke.
What happened?
So I skipped 18 and 19 because, of course, they were in Indianapolis. And, well, financially speaking, I couldn't go anyways.
That's where Rachel Hollis was, yeah.
Yeah, and my debts from everything that I had spent on the years prior going to these things, all this money I had to do were catching up to me too. Plus, I was going through massive periods of unemployment because of our economy up here and what was going on. New Orleans was a joke because, to put it in perspective, there were 9,000 people in Vegas. When we went to Nashville the next year, we jumped to about 20,000 people. Then when we went back to Nashville the following year, we were at about 25 to 26,000 people. We go to New Orleans, there's like 16,000 people.
Oh.
So we dropped almost 10,000 people. Plus, in their infinite wisdom, they decided to hold the general sessions at the Superdome, but then they put the workshops at the convention center, which is clear across the city. And it
oh my God, no!
Yeah, so you have to walk. If you're walking for a good 35 minutes. But even they had, we have a bus loop that you can get on. Well, the bus goes so far out of the way that you're still sitting on the bus for almost 20 minutes. and you have to walk like 3 blocks just to get to the bus itself. I ended up spending more money on Ubers and Lyfts to run back and forth between my hotel, which was right at the Superdome, and the workshops.
You mentioned earlier that when you originally joined Beachbody, it was for the sense of community. Now, were you trying to make it into a job or a career or like a full-time thing at all?
When I first joined, it was just more about connecting with people. And I mean, at one point, it did become appealing to make it a full-time job and, you know, make it a career. And I did start to get wrapped up in, well, maybe I could be a life coach and, you know, do more with it. And, you know, that was a huge bust. But it's because you're sold on this, you know, this pipe dream of this can be your full time. You can retire your spouse. You can retire from the 9 to 5. You know, you don't want to do that. You want to be at home. You want to take these trips. Everything, even now that you see, and it was very much about the materialistic. You know, you'd see these coaches that you had followed for, so long on social media. And it was, I just bought this brand new car and I paid cash, or I've got this new house. And, you know, you're very much, you're sold on that aspect of it. And it's all very false. You know, it's very materialistic. It's very false. And but people are drawn to such things. For me, I was kind of floundering in my career, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point. Like, keep in mind, this was, back in like 2009 when I was first, getting into more intensely being a customer. 2012, I was freshly out of college for the second time, and, trying to figure out my career. And I kind of wanted it as a backup plan at first, but then if it could go full time and support me for the rest of my life, like they tell you, like, you can do this for the rest of your life. And it did seem appealing. Like it seemed kind of appealing, and it was sold as, this is your own business. This is yours. Yeah. Nobody can take this from you, which now we know is a lie, because the minute Beachbody pulls the plug, you're SOL. And I thought of that as well as, well, I don't think this is sustainable. And this thought got louder and louder and louder in my head. I went, what if the company falters?
Yeah.
What if we run out of potential customers for the products? Like I said, realistically, in the end, you may make all this money now, but you're spending it on all this junk you don't need. Yeah. What about retirement? What about everything? Like, the minute this company falls apart, you're done. And then what are you going to do for a job?
I find that so interesting that they refer to it as you can retire, but then when you get into trying to work it full time, they're like, you need to be working constantly, you need to be recruiting people, you need to be selling to everybody. It's like, that doesn't sound like retirement to me. That sounds like really hard work.
And it is.
Yeah. And so like, it's false. They tell you can retire. You obviously can't.
No, you can't, because you're constantly tied to your devices. You're constantly, I have to do this and I have to do that. And this business, I hate calling it a business, but this thing changes people. Mm-hmm. It really changes people. The people that I had met when we all first started in this group together, being, the original Canadian guys, to who they are now, I don't even recognize them anymore.
What are the ways you've noticed some of the people that you started with changing?
It went from, let's hang out and go for coffee, and like we'd go and we'd grab a coffee, or we'd go to a movie, and we'd enjoy each other's, company kind of outside of it. Like, we never really talked about, Beachbody a lot. We were more like, oh, like, how's your family, blah, blah, blah. Like, it felt like you kind of had some friends in a sense, to, let's go for coffee. Well, oh yeah, I'll get back to you. Yeah. And then you'd never hear from them. And then it was, you would see them all over Facebook or all over social media. And it was, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it became more about those recruitment tactics. And it became more about being like an unhealthy obsession, is almost what it is, with what they have to do to achieve. And again, rank is ego. Mm-hmm. And the bigger the rank, the bigger the ego. And you'd go to, so there were the conferences that would happen once a year each year, but then there were what you could term a mini conference quarterly. So 4 times a year you would get together on, it used to only be Saturdays, and then they changed it to a Saturday or a Sunday. And you would see these people that you thought like, oh, hey friend, how you doing? And because their rank had advanced, they then look down their nose at you and go, what do you want?
That's ridiculous. I can't believe that. It's just like they always, they preach this idea that like you're gonna make these close friends, you're gonna have this like sisterhood, and then at the end of the day, people are really just obsessed with themselves. When you were in these circles, did anyone ever try to encourage you to cut out people in your life who had too much negativity?
Oh yeah.
Really? Yeah?
All the time. It was, if they're not supportive, then you probably just need to let them go.
That's wild.
They call it the bless and release. Bless them and release them.
Oh, they're like, they have an actual name for this, like it's like a thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So like they're not even trying to hide it. They're just like, yeah, cut them out.
Yeah, they're not even trying to hide. They're like, if they're not going to support you, well, then they're those negative people that you don't need in your circle, and reevaluate the people that are around you. And I mean, I did take some of that to heart, but the people that I ended up pushing out of my life were actually, it's not because they were unsupportive. They were actually like, they didn't care what I was doing, but it taught me to get rid of people who were like not good for my life. And that was actually good. But typically relationships fall apart. Friendships are ruined.
Yeah.
I just had a friend, like, I'm out of the MLM. I'm anti-MLM now because it has taken me over 8 months to unwire my brain from all the indoctrination.
Oh my God.
And I have a friend who's still trapped in another MLM, and I caught her in a lie. She lied to me, and then she asked me, why am I anti-MLM? And I said my reasons. Her response is, I've watched your videos, I've watched Kiki's videos, I've watched Deanna's, Megan's, like so many out there. And the response was I had to laugh. It was exactly the same. It was, well, corporate world is a pyramid.
I had someone make that argument to me the other day. This wasn't even a pro MLMer. This person was wild too. This person was like, I was like, the reason I hate MLMs is that they exploit a lot of people. And he was like, oh, well, sure, but I don't care about other people. I'm talking about how I can make money. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if you're the kind of person that can just upfront admit that you don't have empathy for other humans, then I don't really know what we're going to discuss here. But yeah, he was trying to make that argument of like every company's a pyramid. It's like the money flows in the opposite direction, though. If you have like, sure, you could say technically, okay, up here's the CEO, and then the people below the CEO, and then the managers, and then all the rest of the employees. But the money flows from the CEO. They pay people below them, and all the money comes from what the CEO, like the CEO decides their salary and is in charge of it. It's different. Mm-hmm. And in MLM, the money flows from the people on the bottom. They make money that pays their upline, that pays their upline. It flows in a different direction and towards the person at the top.
Yeah.
So, and I don't see how that's the same argument at all. That's ridiculous.
So, I mean, like I said, I caught her in a lie, and then she tried to push that on me, and I just said, you know what? I think it's just better we don't talk anymore. Because she's still so ingrained in it. And I mean, I'll be there if she decides to leave and she kind of pulls herself out of it. I'll be there to like throw an arm around her and go, hey, hun, like I'm here to support you. But while she's still in it, I've had to step away from everything to do with those types of things. You know, it's Beachbody, Arbonne, World Financial Group.
Oh my God, World Financial Group.
Herbalife.
Yeah.
Like all of these, as much as these things go, we're not a pyramid scheme. We're not an Emma. It's like, yeah, you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are. The amount of dudes and ladies on LinkedIn who have tried to hit me up from World Financial Group, and I immediately call them on their crap. I go, you're an MLM. Can you not read my profile clearly states I'm anti-MLM? And they're like, well, you can still make money. I'm like, I don't care. You're an MLM.
Yeah, it's like my Instagram profile says anti-MLM video creator in it. And I have people in my comments being like, do you want to join Forex and trade Bitcoin? And I'm like, no, absolutely not.
It's like, no.
It says right there in the bio. But what I found really interesting is what you were saying about how now 8 months out of Beachbody, you're having to rewire the way you think about things and like take yourself out of that indoctrination. Do you have any examples of like things that you've had to unlearn and types of indoctrination that you've actively had to kind of try to remove from your mindset?
Well, as I mentioned, I was in it for 7 years. So you can imagine 7 years of having this just pushed on you and believing this stuff, and you know that, oh, this is the way. But I mean, like the example was thinking about it and not jumping to those arguments or those, you know, mechanisms to defend the MLM. And it's like, well, this part's okay, but this part, yeah, I agree, this part's okay. Now I'm sitting here, like, I still have my Beachbody on demand. I still like the workouts. The workouts have always done me fairly well.
Yeah, that's one of my friends and I are having beef right now because he's using P90X, and I'm like, you can't use P90X, it's owned by Beachbody. And he's like, I don't pay for them, I use someone else's on demand. I'm like, you still can't use it. He's like, yeah, I can, because they're great workouts. So
back in the day, people didn't even buy them. They would torrent them, and then they'd piss us off because they wouldn't buy the DVDs. They're like, oh, I've got a download copy. And we're like,
yeah,
but come on. But that's still the way of it. The torrents are still out there. So, even for some of the newer stuff, they are out there. So, I mean, there are ways to use it and not have to pay Beachbody to use it. Mm-hmm. But, it was... Even I found myself, so what I did when I quit, so I actually ironically quit on my 7-year anniversary to the day.
Nice.
That's the day I filed my paperwork, and 2 days later it was finalized and I was out. And I flipped my account from my upline to because I had connected with on Instagram. I had also came to a city not far from where I was living, and I drove up to actually meet her because I had met her also very briefly in New Orleans. And the first time I met her, I just said hi to her. She literally got up off the couch, didn't know me from a hole in the wall, gives me a big hug and just, hi, how are you? And that type of introduction, I thought she was really nice. Well, she was very nice the very first time I met her, and then she was really nice again the second time that I met her. So then I reached out to her and I flipped my account over to her. Mm-hmm. And for the most part at first, she just kind of left me alone. Because I explained my situation. I said, look, I quit. I can't do anything for 6 months. Because when you quit Beachbody, if you decide that you want to rejoin, you could rejoin your upline right away. But if you want to switch uplines, you have to wait 6 months. They penalize you for 6 months.
Okay. So like to de-incentivize you from quitting the company.
Yeah, that's kind of what they do, because to keep the structure, because they don't want people flip-flopping back and forth. As a customer, you can do it to your heart's content, but as a coach, you can't.
Right.
So I reached out to her and I just said, you know what? I want to flip my account over to you because I feel like it can sit under you, and this is, I don't think I want to do coaching or anything ever again, but I just, I wouldn't mind supporting you because I like you and I think you're a nice person. And she's like, okay, that's cool. So I moved over to her. My old upline didn't even say boo to me. I don't even think she knows that I'm gone. But I flipped over to her and it was fine. But then I got invited, I would get those emails of, hey, we're going to have a little Zoom chat. And it was for what she would call her clients, so her customers, not necessarily coaches, it was for her customers. But having watched on social media, and that is her persona, she's very much like in your face, I don't care, this is the way of it. So I already knew what her personality was like. I jumped on a couple of these calls for fun just to kind of see what they were like. And she was very much the same. She's just kind of like, well, if you want to do it, you just got to do it. Like, I even said to her, I said, well, I'm thinking about the programs and I think I want to do this one first and then move over to this one. And my initial choice, she was like, no, fuck that. No, you screw that. You're not doing that. We're going to scratch that one. You're going to do this one instead. Like, kind of barking orders at me as
okay. That sounds rude.
In a way, and I kind of was like, okay. It was a little rude, and I was like, all right then. So then she approached me through Facebook Messenger, and she asked me about, well, kind of what are you, like, do you want to join this new group of mine and stay connected? And I'm like, yeah, cool, that'd be fine, because, I figured she remembered, like, I don't want to coach, like, I was contemplating because I like I said, I was one of the ones, I like Shakeology, to think, well, do I want to start to incur that cost again?
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, I have not. I am like, no dice, not doing this. But I was asking her the questions, and I said, what would be the better way? Because I am very financially conscious right now. I was trying to put my finances back together. It has taken me almost a year to really repair the damage that Beachbody influenced in my
Yeah,
finances.
that's what I was going to ask, was about finances. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to ask you specifics about your personal money, but overall, would you say that Beachbody was, like, you lost a lot of money in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it was almost $150 a month just to stay active. And then you add on all these extra costs of the conferences.
And did you feel
so it was
pressure to attend the conferences every year?
Yes.
Yeah.
The conferences, the quarterly events, and then it was, okay, well, we're reading this book. Now we're reading this book, or, you know, you need this, or you need to buy the VIP to this program. Like, you have to get in there before everybody else and try it out so that then you can tell people how great it is, or you need to try this product so you can tell everybody how great it is. This is when they started bringing in more the performance line, and then they had the Shakeology boosts, and it was, you have to do this, this, and this. But I'm looking at all these numbers starting to rack up, and I didn't buy a lot of this stuff because I simply couldn't afford it. And I was almost made to feel ashamed that I couldn't buy this stuff.
That's why.
But it basically, I got into a vicious cycle where I would rack my credit card up on these conference costs, and then, you know, try to manage it as much as I could, just that little bit over the year, until my income tax return would come in. And in Canada, we get them at about March and April is when we get our refund. And I would pay off my credit card again for these conferences. It was a disaster. It's just a vicious cycle that goes over and over and over. And as you can imagine, like I said, I went to 4 of these conferences, and it was brutal. And it has taken me a year and a half now to clean up all that mess. By the end of the summer, I will finally be I will be consumer debt free at the end of the summer. Finally.
That's good. I'm glad you're almost there, because I just hate how this kind of thing can, like, destroy someone's life, because they act like, oh yeah, join. You don't have to hold any overhead inventory. You don't have to just pay the startup fee. You're good. But then, like you said, it's all these things where it's like, okay, well, actually, you do have to have an auto ship of Shakeology every month, because otherwise we're going to revoke your account status, and then you won't actually earn commission. And then you have to pay a membership fee every month. And then you also have to pay to go to conferences. Otherwise, you're not really serious about it. So before you know it, this is thousands and thousands of dollars racking up.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, it's like you need this book, or you need this training, or you need, you know, like this, that, and the other thing. Like, I mean, I used to keep my expenses all in a spreadsheet, of course, because, you know, you're deceived into thinking that you're a business owner, which, you know, luckily they do recognize this as somewhat as a business in the tax world. And so when I'd go to compile my expenses for write-offs each year, I'd look at the number at the bottom and just think, how did I spend this much this year? Like, how the hell did I actually afford this? But then I'm looking at all this debt hanging over my head, and I went, oh, there it is. After all this COVID stuff got going, and because that's about the time that I was off work because of it. And she's like, well, do you want to be part of my group? And I said, well, sure. And she said, well, it's a requirement. You absolutely have to, like, be on Shakeology or something. And I said, I just got laid off because of COVID. I can't incur any expenses. I have to, like, I lost almost $900 a month. And I said, look, I've lost almost $900 a month in income. I got to keep a roof over my head first and foremost right now while we ride this out, or until we find out what's going on here. And then she's like, well, you know, you can make money doing what I do. And I torted my retort was, I know. I was part of it for 7 years, remember? And she's like, well, you know, I built a 7-figure business, so I'm a little biased.
The fact that she's like trying to rope you in after you're already like, I did this business, I lost money in it, I need to recover my debt. And she's like, well, I make 7 figures. Like, good for you, Karen.
So needless to say, that really put a sour taste in my mouth with the fact that she had the balls to say that to me after I'd already talked to her about a few things. And then lo and behold, not more than a couple weeks later, Kiki's video dropped. And I went, holy hell. Like, I already knew this because I had seen clips of calls like these, like would post clips. Plus, I knew they would record these calls on Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever they were using. They would put it on their YouTube channels so that people who couldn't attend the calls could go and watch the recording, but also so that if you were on the recording and you wanted to go back and catch something you missed, you could go back and do it. And the one who sits there on her Instagram and professes how her quote unquote veggies, which is what she calls Shakeology while she shows it on screen, helped her with her ulcerative colitis. But she said, because of this, I don't have to be on medication.
No, I hate when people do that. That's, oh my God.
She has said it multiple times. I probably followed her on Instagram daily for like 2 years or so. And I can count on both hands the number of times that she said that, but she has said it more than that. And those are the professions that they do make. Because of Shakeology, this person doesn't need to be on diabetic medication. Because of Shakeology, and of course my indoctrination, I repeated this. Because of Shakeology, this person didn't have to take prenatal vitamins. Because of Shakeology, they can do this or they can do that. Do you think
the company promoted that? Because I know, like, behind closed doors, the people at the top will be like, or like in front of a crowd, they'll be like, hey, we don't make any medical claims. But then for some reason, it seems like all the uplines are pushing all the reps to do it. So do you think that Beachbody as a whole does condone this?
They do, because I even heard it on the big stage at Summit.
Oh, really? They did tell you about it having medical benefits?
Yeah, because this person is drinking, they don't have to take this medication anymore.
No! Oh my God, I can't stand that!
Yeah, it happens. It's not just at the lower level that we saw on these calls. It happens at the upper level.
Oh my God.
Conferences.
All right, everybody who's watching this video, if your doctor prescribes you medication and you're with a licensed, professional, reputable doctor, take your medication. Don't just drink Beachbody shakes and think you don't have to take your medication anymore. That's not how this works.
No, it's not how it works. I'm telling you from experience, it's not how it works. Take your meds. Listen to the licensed professionals. Do not listen to somebody who's editing these to grab your attention. And, you know, even though they say, oh, well, this is how it works for me, they're making it so that you would believe that it's going to do the same thing for you. But honestly, it's a bunch of horse shit. Mm-hmm. I quit October 2019 after 7 years.
Oh my God, 7 years.
It was 7 years. And like I said, I probably stayed in 2 years longer than I should have, but I skipped the two last conferences that they had. I actually was still part of it when they announced they were supposed to go to New Orleans this year, and I groaned and I went, oh my God, are you kidding me again? Like, didn't they learn their lesson?
Yeah, that sounds like it sounds terrible. That's kind of my final question too, which is like, I know there's going to be some one person who downvotes this video and comments saying, the reason she wasn't successful in an MLM company was that she didn't do the same level of work as the people who earn the 7-figure income. It's absolutely possible to do it. I do it. It's made me all this money. Why do you judge so hard? She clearly just didn't have the drive and the work ethic to make it happen. What would you say to respond to that person that I know is lurking on this video ready to hate on me?
I would say morally and ethically, I was not the one who wanted to prey on everybody in my path to be so selfish and take advantage of them for my own selfish gain.
Exactly. I love that. That's how I feel too.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like, yes, sure, maybe you can be one of the few lucky people that make millions of dollars, but how many people's lives did you have to ruin to make that money?
And think about it this way. It's not just you're preying on these people to push yourself further up the chain, and you're not considering the collateral damage behind the scenes. Look at how many marriages have fallen apart. Look at how many marriages are falling apart right now. I mentioned my former upline, my actual upline of 7 years, just announced she's divorced. Her marriage most likely, and I guarantee, fell apart because of this involvement.
Is she still in the company?
She's still in the company. She's one of the very high, like she's way up there. There's no way she'll give it up.
Wow.
But to the person who's going to sit there and say, well, she didn't do the work. Yeah, I admit I didn't do the work because morally and ethically, I knew that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what made me violently and physically sick just thinking about having to go and essentially prey on people and pester people and go into groups on Facebook just because I had a common interest with somebody and then start talking to them because my ulterior motive was to sell them something or to get them to join or to do this, that, and the other thing instead of authentically wanting to get to know somebody for who they are and be a regular human being and having no ulterior motive. So to the person who's going to hate on anybody for that and go, you didn't do the work, well, at least we're not out there product vomiting all over everybody and ruining not only their lives, but the lives of everybody around them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences in this company with me. I am so glad you got out of it, and I'm so glad that things are getting better for you now. Everybody, I don't recommend joining an MLM company. If you're in one and you need help getting out, feel free to reach out to me. I won't judge you. I'm glad you've got a new job. That's really awesome. I hope that's going really well.
It's going well. I actually just returned back to work today after being out for 3 months.
I hope you have a great rest of your week. And everyone who watched this video, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys again soon. In the meantime, don't forget to support small businesses.